This documentary captures the learning culture experience and immersion enjoyed by the Eastern New Mexico University Roswell community, including students, faculty, staff, administrators, and civic leaders on March 25th and 26th. This experience epitomizes what it means to turn on the lights to empower students with the learning culture to have them create their own success. And it illustrates the new consciousness for culturally competent leadership. Special thanks to the Roswell community for sharing in this unforgettable experience. May you enjoy the journey in the bright light of the learning culture.
I finished with the students, and they were amazing. Now I have the privilege of working with faculty and staff leaders to help them spark the learning culture revolution in their Eastern New Mexico University Roswell campus. I'm ready.
Yes, the students were amazing. I also had the pleasure of providing two presentations to faculty and staff, first in the evening on day one, and then in the morning on day two, to provide multiple scheduling options. And it did. In addition to President Powell, the evening presentation included attendance by the mayor, the city manager, the president and CEO of the Economic Development Corporation, the assistant superintendent for the school district, and the executive director of the Hispano Chamber of Commerce. I again thank these civic leaders for joining us. You also inspire me. It is very clear that you too value education, and I congratulate you for your tremendous support of Eastern New Mexico University Roswell. The presentations to faculty and staff were held in the beautiful commons area of the Instructional Technology Center. Just inside the front doors, attendees were immediately greeted by terrific student ambassadors. And at first sight, it was clearly evident that Roswell was prepared for a very special occasion. Tables with a creatively displayed seashore theme featuring a sea star were covered by elegant black tablecloths. And my presentation was preceded by a delicious catered dinner on day one and a breakfast on day two. There was also a table with copies of Turning on the Lights for all attendees. And a display about the author, that was me, was placed at each table. I was truly moved by the generous attention and caring that was displayed for my visit. But it was a seashore theme that was most inspiring. This was taken from the story of the girl and the sea star found at the beginning of Turning on the Lights. Here, a girl finds thousands of sea stars littered on the shore following a storm, and she hurriedly begins to throw them back into the ocean because she knows that they will otherwise die. When a man walks by and says, "I'm afraid you won't really make much of a difference. It won't really matter," the girl, just before tossing another sea star back into the ocean, replies, "It matters to this one." Yes, in Turning on the Lights, this story concludes with the following statement: "Let turning on the lights matter to every student who is in the dark but wishes to succeed. May they be empowered to create their own success in the bright light of the learning culture." Again, the attendees didn't expect it, but as they enjoyed their meal prior to the start of my presentation, I created a learning culture immersion experience for them by playing videos of my students sharing their learning culture experience. The title of my presentation was Turning on the Lights: Strategies for Incorporating the Learning Culture Praxis in the Classroom. This is how my presentation began.
I first heard our speaker at the Hispanic Association of Colleges and Universities in 2022, and I knew I had found a kindred spirit as far as the importance of our students before everything else. He's the director of Mathematics, Engineering, and Science Achievement Program, which is the MESA program, at San Diego City College. He founded that program in 2000, and in 2009 began transforming the program by using learning culture to increase student success. What you will hear tonight from him is how successful the program has been with his students, especially underrepresented students of color and first-gen students. You will also hear how he does it and receive some resources to use his design to serve the students in your classrooms. What you will not hear from him, because he is so focused on student success and not on himself, is a recitation of his recent awards. So I'm going to tell you about them. In 2021, Mr. Alvarez earned the Outstanding Engineering Educator Award from the San Diego County Engineering Council. In 2022, he was selected by the San Diego Business Journal as one of the top 50 Latino leaders of influence. And just this month, he was able to receive the 2024 Community College Award at the Conference for the American Association of Hispanics in Higher Education. He is truly a man who is invested in his students, and I'm very proud to welcome him, Mr. Rafael Alvarez.
Really, the introduction, the reception, the welcome. I'm truly in awe. Dr. Powell, we talked about this. The leadership, it's evident. And not only the leadership, the support of the community, the campus community, and then the Roswell community. Mr. Mayor, thank you for your kind words, and others here, dignitaries, it's amazing to see this. You inspired. And there's no doubt, this type of commitment that you're making, the commitment in your students, it's clear that you care. And that is the key, caring. And into this community, it's an honor to bring this learning culture, as I shared, and and thank you for enjoying the videos where you were immersed in this thing called learning culture. So what a privilege, what an honor. And of course, you inspire me, but more than that, student success inspires me. So I know the success of my students very well, but I'm excited for the success of Roswell students.
While the focus of my presentation was on strategies for incorporating the learning culture praxis in the classroom, I invited everyone to consider applications of the learning culture wherever it is needed. I also share that the design shown here includes both leaders and students, and it symbolizes the learning culture revolution, which I have started in higher education. I explained its significance later in the presentation. To inform and inspire our work, I began by emphasizing the student experience as epitomized by this quote. In the light of the learning culture, students find hope and true empowerment, while in the dark, they find trauma, including depression, self-doubt, and abandoned dreams. What does this tell us about students, especially Roswell students who are in the dark? I'm in the business of using learning culture for transforming lives, and I invited all attendees to also believe and own the learning culture in their own way to transform the lives of the students they meet. This is a collage of my Mesa doctoral scholars from Princeton, Vanderbilt, UCLA, and other top graduate schools. They may fit the profile of students least likely to succeed, but they are empowered with the learning culture to create their own success. By the way, Dr. Beto, pictured top row middle, was previously incarcerated before beginning his studies at City College and joining my Mesa program. Here are the two parts of my presentation. Part 1 provided a brief overview of the learning culture model, and Part 2 provided a detailed review to help identify applications of the learning culture in a basic intro and in the classroom. Part 1 began with 2 videos to illustrate the opportunity and work that awaited all of us. The first video, featuring my Mesa stars, entitled Welcome to SDSU and the Learning Culture, comes from the San Diego State University College of Engineering. I congratulate Revolutionary and Assistant Dean Teresa Garcia for her leadership in turning on the lights for entering engineering students. This video is a key part of the effort to create an experiential learning, learning culture experience for students in Engineering 101. As attendees enjoyed the video, I invited them to note the student experience before and after finding the learning culture. And I invited them to imagine being that first semester engineering student, whether a freshman or a transfer student, but now with the lights turned on for them. This second video highlights the urgency that exists in higher education. The parallels are clear. The engineers fought to bring the astronauts home, while we need to fight to get our students to completion, and the learning culture is the key. While experiencing my presentation, I invited attendees to consider what level of engagement may best fit their role. For example, level 0 is to do nothing, meaning that students remain in the dark. Level 1 is telling students where the light switch is. Level 2 is to intentionally turn on the lights for students. And level 3 is to facilitate a learn by doing opportunity for students. Similar to the presentation for students, I then introduced myself as the director of the MESA program and the corner man to my MESA stars, and added that I founded our MESA program in 2000. However, informed by research on college readiness and success, I have been transforming student lives and increasing student success using learning culture since 2009. And I am working to make City College the Learning Culture College. In a very personal way, I am fighting for me. Like my students, I was that kid, first generation in college, economically disadvantaged and underrepresented in STEM when I began my engineering studies at Harvey Mudd College after graduating from high school. I am the oldest in my family, and I didn't know anyone who went to college from my neighborhood in East San Diego. What did I know about the learning culture? Nothing. As we know from the completion rates, I too was in the dark, but I was one of the lucky ones. I have a bachelor's in engineering from Harvey Mudd and a master's in electrical engineering from USC. I could not tell you then how I did it. I simply survived by instinct. But I know it now. It is called learning culture. This research sparked my light bulb moment for using learning culture to increase student success. In the study, Defining College Readiness from the Inside Out, First Generation College Student Perspectives, researchers Bird and McDonald looked to understand what it takes for college readiness and success. And to do this, they interviewed successful first generation college students. Based on the student responses, the researchers identified 10 important factors necessary for college readiness and success, and they organized the factors into three categories. Category 1, college readiness skills and abilities. Category 2, background factors and life experiences. And Category 3, non traditional student self concept. Overall, all of the factors are important for college readiness and success. However, when I read the results of the study in 2009 and discovered factor number 10, understanding the college system, college standards, and the culture of college, I knew that the students in the study were right. There is a culture for learning in every institution of higher education, including Eastern New Mexico University, Roswell. However, students are not made aware of it when they begin their college studies. This inspired me to change my MESA program to have a greater impact on the lives of my students, and it has led to the development of the learning culture praxis model. As in the presentation for students, I first shared with attendees the two important things that students need to understand about culture, beginning with why culture. That is, culture is in our DNA. It matters and it is everywhere. And when we're a part of any culture, there are things we do in that culture because that's what we do. Again, why do I eat tamales at Christmas time? Because that's what we do in my culture. And here's a second thing students must know about culture. That is, to understand and appreciate culture, it is also necessary to know that every culture has two main parts, a surface part and a deep part, as illustrated by this culture iceberg. Like the students, the attendees learned from the videos that the learning culture also has two main parts, including knowing how to approach the learning. But the more important and larger part is having a mindset for learning. Again, give me a student with a strong mindset for learning, and I will show you a successful student. Just like I eat tamales at Christmas time, there are things students must do to create their own success because that's what you do in the learning culture. But it is also important to recognize that the learning culture is primarily deep culture, which means that it is not easily seen or learned by students. The result is that students are generally in the dark about the learning culture unless someone makes them aware of it. Like the students, the attendees next learn that this is a challenge for all college students who have many strengths and great potential, but they also have gaps, and they're in the dark with regards to the learning culture. The challenge for students then is to learn the learning culture and use it to fill their gaps to create their own success and achieve their goals. In part one of this presentation, I briefly introduced the stand up display, which defines what it means to have a mindset for learning, and I invited attendees to note the powerful language of success. And I briefly introduced this stand up display, which identifies the strategies for knowing how to effectively approach the learning, including the formula for approaching the learning and other strategies. Here, I presented the two parts of the learning culture side by side, and I asked attendees if we can agree that this is educational wealth in a form of privilege that was previously available to only a few, but it is now available to all students. We are products of our environment. If this language of success and strategies are not present in our students' environment, how are they expected to succeed? Imagine if all students, especially students in Eastern New Mexico University Roswell, are empowered with this educational wealth when they begin their college studies. Here, I inform the attendees that these five parts capture the learning culture praxis that I have defined, articulated, and implemented in my MESA program. As written in my book, Turning on the Lights, Using Learning Culture to Increase Student Success, with the foreword contributed by higher education leader Dr. Laura Rendon. Part one answers the question, why learning culture? Parts two and three essentially define the learning culture. Part four addresses leadership, internships, and research, because beyond developing scholars, the learning culture develops leaders. And part five reviews educational planning basics, things to know. In addition, with free basic learning culture training videos available for each part on the Turning on the Lights website, these training videos are the cornerstone of the revolution. And the book, Turning on the Lights, is available as a reference with complete details, how to instruction, and up to 40 student stories to bring the learning culture to life. There is no longer a reason why any student should remain in the dark. As I did for students, I also shared with attendees this at a glance handout for the contents inside Turning on the Lights. And I highlighted the 10-point strategic plan for university success in part two and the 10-point strategic plan for summer programs in part four. Plus, I added, like San Diego State University, the UC Berkeley College of Engineering also turned on the lights for entering engineering students. And the engineering programs coordinator shared, you know, we don't have a MESA program, but with turning on the lights, we don't need one. It's all here. I also shared with attendees this side by side comparison of profiles for the engaged student versus the empowered student. In this presentation, I identified the study titled From Gatekeeping to Engagement, a multi contextual mixed method study of student academic engagement in introductory STEM courses, in which researchers develop profiles for faculty, including the gatekeeper professor and the engaging professor. They also profile characteristics of the engaged student. This is a side by side comparison of the engaged student versus the empowered student who applies the learning culture to take control of their learning and create their own success, including having a mindset for learning and knowing how to approach the learning. Again, as stated at the bottom, the empowered student is an engaged student, but the engaged student is not necessarily an empowered student. I ended this part of the presentation with this self-reflection handout, which I also shared with students. Here I began by sharing that the use of learning culture as a strategy for increasing student success is proven and very powerful. And once the lights are turned on for students, they cannot say that they didn't know. This is the bad news for all students. Yet this self-reflection handout identifies the top 5 ways in which students sabotage themselves, including commitment, self-advocacy, being proactive versus being a procrastinator, time management, and accountability. If any of these are gaps, then the learning culture means nothing. When I empower students with the learning culture, I also make them aware of these top 5 ways in which students self sabotage. I am very explicit about this, and I challenge students to make a choice: either succeed with the learning culture or fail by self sabotaging. I invited the attendees to do the same. This prompted a response from Mayor Jennings, who stood up and emphatically stated, "This is what is needed in business." And he continued by affirming the importance of the 5 qualities for students to become successful professionals. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your strong endorsement and support of the learning culture.
This has been a Brown Side of the Moon production. The revolution continues.